One of the particularities of our technology is the fact that all the components are off the shelf from the telecommunication industry. So one of the lines of development that we have is going to allow us to bring closer this dream that I have, where QKD lives in our living room.
We cover PQC regularly on this show, focusing on math-based ciphers that will secure the internet as quantum computing becomes more powerful. But what about physics-based encryption or quantum key distribution? Is that still a thing? We examine how exploiting the laws of quantum physics can securely exchange encryption keys over fiber and explore the benefits of the newer continuous variable QKD. And how does the quantum internet fit into all this? Find out about real-world use cases for photons whispering secrets in this episode of the Post-Quantum World. I'm your host, Konstantinos Karagiannis. I lead quantum computing services at Cryptography, where we're helping companies prepare for the benefits and threats of this exploding field. I hope you'll join each episode as we explore the technology and business impacts of this post-quantum era. Our guest today is the CEO of LuxQuanta, Vanesa Diaz. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you. I'm going to put you super on the spot for the first question. And I'm going to ask you to explain in as short a period of time as possible what QKD is for listeners who don't know about quantum key distribution.
Okay, challenge accepted. Let's think about our information being protected. So we have the information in our houses, and we have the information that is moving from house to house or from company to company. So how we protect the information in transit today, we do so by using one thing called cryptography, which is at the end a password like the one that you and I, Konstantinos, we put in the laptop. But in this case, we use it to destroy the information in a controlled manner. And so when we send it over the internet, that anyone can take it, they cannot unveil what's inside. Nobody can hack it. So what about this password? Because in an ideal world where we are not hyper-connected, we could literally meet in a place, in a cafe, in a Starbucks maybe, and then exchange this password, this cryptographic key. But this is not something that we can do today. So how are we doing? Well, the keys are actually some kind of a game between, imagine a lock and a key. So I send like a coffin and a key. So I send the information in the coffin and I close it and I send it across the network. And then you send it back to me. Actually, I'm saying it wrong. No, we're going to have to start again.
Okay, we'll start from which
the
part?
Very beginning.
You want to go all the way? Yeah.
See, because I don't want to make it so complicated.
Okay. So we're just going to start with me asking the question again. Actually, I asked the question. So Fred, we're just going to start from her answer to putting her on the spot, etc. Yeah, we'll just start like that. So you can start again. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to try my best. Let's start from the beginning. So all our digital information is out there. We have it moving across companies, between the government, hospitals, financial institutions. And the way that today is protected is by using cryptography, which at the end it boils down to passwords. It's a way of encrypting the information, making it hidden from anyone who can intercept those messages back and forth. So the cryptography as we know it today, the security of it, is relying on the difficulty of to solve a mathematical problem. So if anyone intercepts messages that you and I, Konstantinos, were exchanging, they will have to solve something very widely known, like the factorization of very large prime numbers, that it takes a long time for current computers. So we are safe. We've been safe for many years. But we know that in the horizon, we have quantum computers. Eventually, they will have enough capacity to hack this mathematical problem, exposing potentially all our information. So what we do is set up these keys or these passwords that we use to protect the information in almost like a government or a defense ministry would do. In this ideal world, there is a person that is actually carrying these keys. So if you and I wanted to communicate across the city, we will have a person giving me these passwords or these keys and then giving them to you. But this is not, it's very safe, but it's not very easy to do.
To jump in, so what you're describing here is, of course, one of the oldest problems in cryptography. It's that this idea that if you have a symmetric key, something that we both have to agree upon, how on earth are we going to share that symmetric key, right? Because if the network was secure, we wouldn't need the symmetric key, right?
Exactly.
So you need some way to share it. So all modern cryptography, basically, when you send data in motion, you have to have some way to exchange the key first, and then you agree on that key. And then after that, it's just we're both using that same password or key to decrypt messages. So in the case of RSA, you have this key exchange with a public key and private key. And then once you agree what the symmetric key is, after that, it's just we both use that same one to encrypt messages. So that handshake, that difficulty of agreeing on key data, that's what we're trying to do in a post-quantum way, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about how to do that with photons of light now, as opposed to doing it with something like lattices or one of the post-quantum ciphers that we've talked about on the show before. So now we want to get to that cafe where we're exchanging the key, right? We can't do that physically. So we need some way to agree upon what the secret key will be. So I guess now you're going to tell us how quantum key distribution lets you agree with what that key will be.
Well, we basically put in the field some kind of like a James Bond, but in the quantum realm, super hyper protected. So not even a quantum computer could hack it. And this boils down to hardware. That's what we actually do. What LuxQuanta does, what quantum key distribution is about, is literally a transmitter and a receiver. The transmitter crafts this cryptographic key and then codes it in the light. In these zeros and ones, you code it somewhere in the light, and then you pump it through an optical fiber, the same optical fiber that is already connecting us across the city. So it arrives to the other side, and then the receiver, just using a different public channel, they just gossip, and it's like, has somebody touched or intercept this information while it was in transit? So the magic of what we do is that optical signal is so attenuated. It's like whispering, that if somebody intercepts it, it's going to respond to the laws of quantum physics, where it's going to leave a trace. So I can tell whether the key was sent securely from one unit, or the transmitter, to the receiver. That's why it's like a James Bond carrying a quantum briefcase with the keys inside.
Yeah, so from the earliest days with the BB84 protocol, this idea of establishing your polarization of light and what bias you're measuring that on. And then you send key data to each other. And then if your measurements match about half the time or so, you start to build up what the key is. Now, if anyone intercepts it and tries to read that, as you said, you notice. It creates a problem with the transmission. And they can't just fake it. They can't move on photons because there's something called the no cloning principle in quantum physics. So basically, we need this physical medium to transmit and build key data. And we're creating ultimately a one-time pad, right? So with, yeah.
Well, in our case, it's slightly different. So we have a different protocol. The technology that we work with is the new kid on the block. What has been out there in the industry is called discrete variable, is BB84. Mm-hmm. And what they are doing is coding those zeros and ones in the property of the photon. So if it spins in one direction, it's a 0. If it spins in the other one, it's a 1. But what we do is what we normally do in the telecommunication industry. We have a carrier. It's like a wave that is vibrating in the transmitter, and then over that optical wave, we are modulating the zeros and the ones. So that allows us to have in the receiver a complete different approach. It's another oscillator, is called, that is kind of like a sniper. It's rescuing that information that is being carried in one particular color of the light, and then amplified and extract those zeros and those ones. So we are working in the noise world, trying to match what it was transmitted with what it was received, and identified, extracting the noise from the natural noise of the channel, whether there was a hacker or not. And that's how we determine if the cryptographic keys are clean, and therefore we can distill them and pass them to the layer above. So it's slightly different. And the beauty of it is that it allows us to use components that are off the shelf from the telecommunication industry. There is no princessy, so to say. Everything is bought online in any website, and that allows us to apply economies of scale in our solution. It also allows us to be very resilient in terms of temperature changes. But the most important thing, of this new version that is called continuous variable QKD is that we can coexist with the data in the same optical fiber, in the same band. And this is beautiful because when you bring something like what quantum key distribution brings in the quantum channel, like it's a whisper, being able to coexist with the data, not having to move the data around, it gives a lot of flexibility. So if you and I wanted to protect our communications across the city, we would have to install with this solution that we manufacture a transmitter on my side, a receiver in yours. We would use the same optical fiber where the data is being exchanged. So this same conversation we're having over digital data in the same optical fiber as the quantum channel where the two machines are establishing the keys.
Great. So there have been early experiments in transmitting everything on live fiber, with phone calls and things happening. And this has been going on for about, 11 years or so, that kind of thing's been going on. But there have been advances too. So I want to dig into some of the limitations and advances here. So one of them is this idea of point to point. This is still very much point to point, right? Like you have to have a building here and a building there, and they're communicating over fiber. There's still no way really to have a system of like repeating and switching, popping these messages and keeping them quantum, right? To go all over the globe.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, we do have to preserve the same, kind of like the same anatomy. So if you think about a network, an optical network in a city, it looks very much like the roads. You have like a ring road, and then you have hanging from there like a tree with branches. You are connecting the different business parks with the companies within. So when we think about this technology, and it's the reality, so far it's been installed more surgically in some specific links, more kind of point to point. But what we want to bring this technology into is more a wide adoption where you are deploying it within these rings in the cities and also in these three branches. So potentially, when I say we could communicate across the city, if a telco is deploying this technology inside its kingdom, in the city, you and I could actually get the keys, the quantum keys from this provider without having to invest, just only paying for the service. And this is where the industry right now is working towards. So we're working very hard to make sure that we tick all the boxes to incentivize this market, democratize this technology, so a telecommunication service provider thinks there is value for me on delivering these kind of services and it's worth the investment.
Okay, so for making this work in the real world, in the early days of QKD, you were able to get something like 1.4 megabits per second of key data, if you were lucky. But that's fine because, again, you're only using this to agree upon a key. You're not using it as a true one-time pad to encrypt your data as it goes. It's just a key agreement, right? So we could do things like AES counter mode and constantly update the AES symmetric keys that are used after. So that's fine. That's okay. Are there any new boosts that continuous variable QKD provides in this space? Does it provide more key data? Does it enable any new speed ups of any kind like that can enhance communications?
I'm gonna have you to repeat because I lost you for a little while, so I couldn't hear the question.
Okay, so in the early days of QKD, we were able to do about 1.4 megabits per second or so of key data. And that was fine because we paired it with AES counter mode and we were able to just constantly update symmetric keys. So it worked fine. And we were able to do things like 40 gigabits per second as a result of actual data transferred. So obviously no hiccups there. I'm just wondering if CVQKD brings anything new to the table. Does it increase like the amount of key data you could generate? Does it enable any other uses of one-time pad or anything like that because of its speed up?
See, this is actually one thing that this version of the technology excels. It can give an extra push in terms of key generation, so we can deliver higher key rates. And you're very right. As of today, we are seeing quantum key distribution and its keys being used more with AES, and that's it, nothing like one-time pad. But it's true that one of the things that we're saying to the industry is that if you are deploying a technology with a higher key rate, perhaps you cannot do one-time pad in every single piece of information that you're transmitting through one link, but you can use it in some of that information, which is another value. Also, when you think about the amount of applications that can feed from the same pair of machines. The fact that in one node you have a machine that is creating an extra set of keys, no, compared to other versions, that gives you as well resilience in terms of the future. You can load more applications and more services over the same node.
Okay. And is there anything about CVQKD that makes it better suited for future systems that might want to pick up the communication? So for example, you have two buildings that communicate, but then they want to send it on to a third. Is there anything that allows this protocol to keep that connection more secure as it gets handed off? Because the handoff is where things get tricky, right?
Yes. I think the entire industry, you're very right. So that you don't need that trusted node. You don't need, when you are finishing or dying in a receiver and starting in a transmitter, you do have to make that space safe, because we ensure that the exchange of the key is super safe. But then we need to make sure that those nodes or data centers that are hosting the back-to-back units, they are also safe. One thing that we are doing is to allow something beyond this point-to-point layout of topology. We also allow to have one transmitter and multiple receivers connecting, not to the same piece. So that allows you to open or create or enable a new node in a network for half of the price, because you do not have to invest on a full pair. And we are doing that by using just a simple switch that allows the transmitter to be looking at a specific time to each of the receivers and then back again. So this is highly appreciated. We've seen this many times. Many customers acquire first the pair and then they come back buying progressively more and more receivers, not to enable more and more nodes. So this flexibility is definitely an added value.
And you mentioned earlier about the different frequencies of light, and I know this box that you have, which is a 2U rack mount, by the way, for people wondering. It's not like a quantum computer or something. It's just like a device that generates these photons. If you can reach, let's say, 100 kilometers with this, is this approach then designed to ensure that more of the photons get there, right? That they're not being lost or they're not being misinterpreted as background noise? Because like you said, it's a whisper signal. So if too many of them aren't received, someone's going to think they're under attack, when in reality, it's just poor network performance. So how does that software kind of like fix that?
Yeah, well, it's beautiful because all QKD technologies are constrained by the same fact that they are whispering for one way or another. And that's why that maximum reach that you can separate the transmitter and the receiver, it's always one of the trickiest parts. So when this new version, this new kid on the block, continuous variable QKD, was born, it was born with a bit of a handicap, because the old folks were working, allowing distances around 120, 150 kilometers, and we were born with 40. And with that, you go literally in very little places. So how have we enhanced the technology to the point that right now we are breathing in the neck of these other manufacturers that actually have been a lot longer in the industry and excelling in terms of what a commercial CVQKD can do? We have an excellent R&D team, and what they've been doing is precisely what you said, Konstantinos. They are looking at the noise and they are playing with it, and they are becoming, they are doing virtuous things to be able to extract the true information among all the noise from the channel, that whisper, and then being able to extract it in a much more with much more quality, so that out of the same kind of signal they can go further, basically. So one of the things that makes continuous variable QKD very unique is precisely the amount of signal processing and software error correction. So these upper layers above the hardware, there is a lot of know-how, and some of the things that our team is doing is in fact unique as far as we know in the world. And that is playing with that, almost with the same hardware, playing with these two other layers, how we've been pushing, mastering that noise, and then pushing it to 100 kilometers distance. And this is just something for the audience. We haven't finished just yet squeezing the performance of this technology. We haven't reached the limit yet.
Okay, and what kinds of customers do you see using this right now because of its point-to-point limitations? Like, who is this of interest to?
Well, because you can, as soon as you can connect pairs one after the other, or you play with this point-to-multipoint architecture, you stop being limited to just two buildings. You can actually do perhaps one data center and several branches of a financial institution. Other examples that we've seen is two hospitals connected across the city of Madrid. This was a demonstration that we did back at Mobile World Congress was announced, no? With Telefonica and Vita's hospitals. That was beautiful. It involved the use of 3 pairs of our technology. So you were traveling from one hospital to the Telefonica's ring, and that is one pair. Then within the optical fiber ring of Telefonica, another pair, and then another pair to go from the ring to the other hospital. It was beautiful because they ended up, once we installed everything, exchanging information about the patients, and they were having remote consultations, very tangible, very close to the public, and very real. So what I just described is a proof of concept, the same as with the financial institution. But we've been selling as well to telco system houses and governments and public institutions. And you see a combination of these it says layouts. One of the places of the network that, for example, is a very reasonable place to start with in terms of deploying this technology is data centers, because that's where we are storing all our information, ranging from, think about a bank, not only everything about their operations, but also your information and my information is there. So the pipes that connect those data centers, they are huge in terms of the volumes of information they carry and the delicacy of it. So that is a great and excellent place to start placing this technology. So we have, for example, as well demonstrated the connection of several data centers to the master one using a point-to-multipoint configuration using our technology. So it's one of the things that when I talk about this, I like to reinforce is the fact that this is something that is being sold as we speak. Because when we think about quantum stuff, everybody thinks about quantum computers and how long it'll take until they deliver quantum supremacy. But the reality is that out of quantum computing, quantum communications, and quantum sensing, quantum communications is already here. And thanks God it is, because that is giving us time to prepare for what is yet to come. Actually, another thing that I like to say is we have been deploying these systems now for 2 years. We are in the 2nd generation. We're smashing it out there, with top-of-the-art performance. But throughout these 2 years, we have been improving our technology, because one of the targets is that we make it something that is commercial. It has to be easy to install. We want to make something that's plug and play, and it is. I'm not going to tell you that it's as easy as using a toaster, but it's pretty close. There is a button, you push it, and the quantum thing actually happens.
Okay. So there's a few places I want to dig in here. One, this idea of, you mentioned mobile world. So I just want to ask you this kind of upfront. We're not going to be using QKD on mobile phones, obviously, right? Like you're not expecting me to hold my phone up and point it at a satellite, like when they say to send a text message if branded. Yeah, so that's not going to happen. So there is some like real handoffs that are going to have to happen. So that's a whole discussion there. Like what kind of handoffs happen to make things like that secure? Is that just regular PQC, or is this just blended defensive depth? And on the topic of then the networks and the nodes, maybe you just want to tell listeners a little bit about how that handoff occurs. Like, you've got box 1, it goes to box 2, and then it switches over to go to box 3 because of another segment. Is there any other insight you can give them into how that still stays quantum
yes.
when the handoff occurs?
I'm gonna first pick up on the first comment that you made, because I think it is definitely worth exploring it. So I normally put this example. I do not use the same pair of shoes for a wedding than for hiking. Okay. So we cannot expect to have, and I think that would be an illusion, and it would be counterproductive in order to, be with your customers to say this is the solution that you're going to use everywhere in your network. Mm-hmm. It's not the case. So quantum key distribution has a beautiful place and a beautiful role to play in many parts of the network. Definitely delivers a sense of security that is unparalleled, because once you install these machines, off you go. You can hit us with 1 quantum computers or 3. But it's true that PQC, there is an enormous amount of effort that the industry has made with the brightest mathematical minds to give birth to the most complicated mathematical problems that they are designed to withstand the attack of a quantum computer. And there are points of the network where we do not have the support of an optical fiber, and that is mobile networks. So from the tower, from the base station to your phone and my phone, we're going to have PQC. And there will be many other places in the network where this will be the technology of choice. And there will be places where we will see the two technologies work together. So to be honest, one of the first things that I enjoy the most when I start working with a customer is to do this kind of assessment is where do we go first? And then how can PQC also combine with ours deliver you the best security level for where we are and how this is going to evolve for where we're going to be, so to say. Let's go back to the other question. The other question was about what happens on the handover, no? And how do we make sure that the laws of quantum physics prevail? So what I was saying before is kind of like, I need to bring it back. It's connected to your question. When we think about the network, no? In terms of these different nodes where sometimes I have two machines back to back. That is a physical space where I need those boxes to be safe, because we could blend the boxes in one, we could do many things, but at the end there is a physical device that you potentially could go with something, to just touch inside and then do some kind of attack.
Quantum screwdriver attack. Yeah,
I love it. Yeah, exactly. So there is a whole of effort in the industry to make sure that the boxes are safe. And I need to bring back James Bond again, because it's the same as when, if you touch it or if you try to open it, it self-destroys. So there are those kind of physical hardware measures that we are implementing, but we need something more. So we've seen telcos that are already proposing literally cages within their own data center where these machines are going to be locked, and where you make sure this way that nobody's going to be able to stick the screwdriver. And we're talking about infrastructure that sometimes will also have some kind of surveillance as well. So that is how we're going to make it happen. There will be some kind of like physical support as well to make sure that the security is not compromised.
Because what happens ultimately is it goes from box to box and it's quantum, but then at some point it has to become classical to hand off to the next box to once again become quantum with the box further down the chain. So just want listeners to understand that there has to be a step there right now. And that's what makes it difficult to do just like pure quantum switching or whatever, because there's this, cloning problem.
Exactly. And that's why the standard organizations are making sure that we all agree on a standard. No, it's like, how are we going to make sure that this is safe so we can rely on it?
Great. And that said, when you were talking about places where this is going to have obvious impact, there's a couple of pluses, right? One of the biggest ones is there's nothing to harvest now and decrypt later here. You're not going to be able to harvest a one-time pad and decrypt it later. That's just not a thing that happens in the world. One-time pads are safe because they are one-time pads. There's no pattern. There's no factorization. There's nothing to reverse. There's no math to break. It's just not that. It's literally just a random string that, good luck reversing it. It's random. There's nothing to reverse. So that's a good thing. And the other good thing is, what are we learning here? What are you guys learning about networking with this kind of device that's going to impact the quantum internet of the future? Caveat being that no two people agree on what the quantum internet is yet. Like everyone has 80 opinions on this, but what are we learning that will one day secure how actual quantum computers might be communicating with each other?
Wow, this is a whole new universe, because you're very right. The quantum internet is supposed to be able to communicate purely in the quantum realm. Mm-hmm. So one of the core technologies that we need to make that happen is quantum memories. And I was having a conversation not long ago today with my CTO about when this is going to happen. So it's a technology that is giving its first steps. We have some spin-offs working on this, some startups in the world. We need them, because that will be the one only way that we can make sure that we do not leave it. So we can have this, amazing super speeds. It's difficult to imagine. What we are learning of this industry that we are in is that my former job was very similar to this, because I was working in Corning, bringing new products, new technologies that people upfront didn't want. And then you had to showcase exactly what is the value that this stuff they don't actually want at first is bringing to them. So then you start eventually convince them. So I'm fascinated about this world world because it's very hard when you try to convince someone that is worth of their investment. You need to speak the best language here, which is money. But it's very, very hard to give a dollar value to our data, the value of our data and our security and a breach. It's very easy to know once a breach has happened. And then you can see it in the news, you can see it out there, but it's very hard to do it before. So it's been a tricky yet beautiful journey that we are collectively doing together. So the threat is not here yet. I always like to say grateful for that, so we have time to prepare. But definitely it is a path that is worth exploring today because it does take time. Whether we go towards quantum key distribution, that is a hardware-based approach, or PQC, which is more software approach, both do take time to understand. It takes time as well to do an inventory where I'm going to put them and then deploy them. That takes probably a decade. So, the question in reverse is, when do we think that we will have a real threat potentially breaching all our security across the world? So I find it fascinating, accompanying the customers and how we all are changing and reshaping our perceptions about when the right time is, which I believe is now.
And this is, 2025. 2025 is like the International Year of Quantum, right? Everyone agrees because it was formulated, quantum physics was formulated 100 years ago. Is there anything you'd like to see QKD help accelerate? Is there some new use case that we maybe haven't even thought of yet that maybe your team is thinking about? Is there something like truly new that you think QKD could bring?
I do have a dream. I mean, right now we are all the manufacturers. It's a really cool industry because I have the pleasure to work not only with a great team, but also with really smart competitors as well. I think we are all in a frantic race to make our solutions the cheapest, the easiest to install, the best performance. And it's getting progressively, like we saw in computing and in any other technology, we are making it progressively smaller and more affordable. I have a dream. I love to have one quantum key distribution device in my router, in my house, so I could actually use those keys to communicate with everyone else in the world. And this is something that it is in our mind, because one of the as well particularities of our technology is the fact, as I mentioned at the beginning, that all the components are off the shelf of the telecommunication industry, and that means that exists in a factory that is printing photonic chips. Mm-hmm. So one of the lines of development that we have in the backyard is precisely that. And that is going to allow us to not only compact everything, also be a lot more affordable as well, to democratize this technology and bring closer this dream that I have, where QKD, maybe LuxQuanta's QKD, lives in our very living room.
Wow. Yeah. And of course, with your approach, that makes sense, because you're not asking people to introduce a dark fiber, right? Like a brand new line just for this. You want to go over the actual fibers that are there. So that
exactly. We can do it. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah. So with that, thanks so much for joining. And I hope to see yet another version of your protocol evolving over time.
Thank you, Konstantinos. It was a pleasure to be with you.
That does it for this episode. Thanks to Vanesa Diaz for joining to discuss LuxQuanta. And thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe to Protivity's The Post-Quantum World, and maybe leave a review to help others find us. Be sure to follow me on all socials at Constant Hacker. That's Constant with a K, Hacker. You'll find links there to what we're doing in quantum computing services at Protivity. You can also DM me questions or suggestions for what you'd like to hear on the show. For more information on our quantum services, check out Protivity.com or follow Protivity Tech on X and LinkedIn. Until next time, be kind and stay quantum curious.